welcome to the show. I've got Chris DeMakes of Less Than Jake on the show today. Less Than Jake, great band, started in the early 90s, quickly gained a big following, and they started releasing bigger albums, touring with bigger and bigger bands like Newfound Glory, Good Charlotte, Blink-182, and they've done the Vans Warped Tour more than any other band. They also had a lot of really interesting and cool merchandise, from like dolls to cereal boxes. Just a lot of cool stuff. Chris is a very cool guy, very down to earth, very smart, and he has a lot of projects going on right now besides Less Than Jake. He's got a book coming out, solo record. He's got a podcast he just started. He does jingles and so much more. So buckle up and enjoy the ride talking with Chris DeMakes.
I just emailed you back. I was just busting your balls.
Oh, were you? Why? What'd you say?
You must think you're dealing with an amateur.
Oh, no. Yeah, I just wasn't sure because you said.
And look at the time. It's 9:30. I'm a lot of things, but I'm punctual.
No, that's right. I know that about you. Yeah, I did my research. I'm professional too. So
I know you are. How you doing, man?
Great. So welcome to the show. Just make sure I say your name right. Chris DeMakes. Easy to say, right?
You got it.
Cool. Well, let's just dive right into it then.
Perfect.
I got a lot of questions for you. So
awesome, man.
Less Than Jake, but let's start at the beginning. So your parents were actually singers themselves, and that's what you were surrounded by music your whole life.
Yeah, my mom and dad, I grew up in a musical household. They were playing out 2, 3, 4 nights a week from the time I remember. My father actually started right when he graduated high school in '66, and he played for about 12 years, and my mom joined him in 1978. And so as far back as I can remember, my mom and dad were singing.
Yeah. And so you grew up in the kind of the 80s, that MTV era, and you and I are both metalheads, right? I mean, like you grew up with Quiet Riot, Metallica, Motley Crue. Like what else?
Oh yeah. I mean, everything from 50s rock and roll on up, because my mom and dad, they were playing 50s, 60s rock and rolls, the 70s. So I was listening to everything. It would literally be on the way to Little League games as a kid. I'm not even exaggerating. It would be like, Dolly Parton into Neil Diamond into Slayer and then into the Beach Boys. It was literally all over the place, and mom and dad were all encompassing when it came to music. They weren't judgmental. They didn't care if I listened to Stryper or Slayer. It didn't matter to them. Yeah.
So I was going to ask you about that. So your parents were like supportive of like your music career and just let you listen to whatever you want. So you'll never know the pain of like recording an NWA album and then like on a blank tape and writing New Kids on the Block on it, or anything. You didn't have to do that game? Or?
No, I never experienced that. Most of my friends did.
Okay. You had the cool parents.
Well, they got it. They didn't think that, if I was going to be influenced by some gangster rap records or something, they knew how they were raising me, and
that's cool.
I was grounded enough to where they trusted me, I guess,
And you were a really good student.
Yes.
You were good in school.
I wouldn't say I was, I think like most people with a brain between their ears, if they applied themselves, they could do a hell of a lot better. I got by, I got B's and C's because I didn't strive to get A's. I was bored in school, to be honest with you. I was just, I never studied. I always had a photographic memory. I just would kind of pay attention in class, and as long as I passed the test, that's really all I cared about.
Do you think that it would, like, because you ended up going to college, University of Florida, which we'll get to, but I'm just wondering, do you think it would have been more beneficial for you to just drop out of school and just work on music? Because like I don't know if you know the band Sacred Reich, but I interviewed their guitar player, and he dropped out of high school. I can't remember what age, but he said he would literally just go home and he would play the guitar all day while his friends were at school. And I was like, wait, for like 8 hours you play guitar? He's like, yeah. And I mean, the results speak for him. He's really good at guitar. Like he just did a Van Halen tribute and it's like spot on Eruption. I'm like, gosh. And I think that was probably a better thing for him.
Well, yeah, I mean, I wasn't ready in high school to go that route, but it did happen when I got to college.
Okay.
So I only went to college for about about 3 years total.
Okay.
Took a semester off in there. So it's like I went to college for 2.5 years, got the equivalent of what would have been an associate's degree, but I never finished at the University of Florida because I was doing what the guy from Sacred Reich was doing. I'd get up in the morning and go, well, I got class, fuck it, and I just would pick up the guitar and I'd be writing songs all day. So, I wasn't sitting around, wasting my days. I was actually doing something.
Yeah. So before you got to college, you were in a band called Good Grief, which I think was it the bass player or something? His last name was Grief. And so that's why you guys.
Well, now we called him Grief, but
okay.
Good Grief sprang out of, so our old drummer in Less Than Jake, Vinny and I, who started Less Than Jake, I met him when I was 15. He was 19. And I come from a really, really small little town on the Gulf Coast of Florida. And we had put this hardcore band together, and he didn't have anybody to sing. He heard I was a singer. And so I started singing for this band called Needless Guild. And that ended up morphing into Good Grief, what you're talking about.
Okay.
But these were just kind of like bedroom bands, there was really no place to play down where we lived.
Gotcha.
Except for like our friend's garage on a Friday night, so.
Yeah, I looked for a demo or so. I could not find any. So it was like hardcore punk, you're saying?
Yeah. It was very screamy and, influenced by things like Subhuman, Circle Jerks, things of that nature.
Okay.
80s kind of hardcore punk. Just being young, crazy, wacky kids. And, but him and I, during that whole period, we would always kind of, when the rest of the band would leave, I would pick up the guitar and be like, hey, I got this idea, because I didn't really start playing guitar, even though my dad had a guitar around the house, and I knew my G and D and C chords and things, but I wasn't a player pretty much until I got to college. I was 17 and a half when I started playing guitar and picking out songs because I couldn't find people that were hearing what was in my head. So I decided to do it myself.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people might not know this about you. I know that you would dress up as a baseball player later in the bands, but you actually played baseball. Your dad was a minor league player and you got a walk-on offer at the University of Florida, right? You turned it down?
So, I played sports growing up. Dressing as a baseball player was just one facet. And we'll talk about that in a little bit when we get into my book, because my book has all those pictures from the past.
Oh, cool.
I had wardrobe cases in the early days, and it was kind of a backlash against punk rock because, I got into punk rock because it was different. And then it became mainstream, and we found ourselves in the mainstream. So here, everybody was dressing with the, nose earrings and the eye rings and the getting tattoos and, dyeing their hair different colors. And of course I went through all those phases too, but so I was starting to take the stage in the early days. I just wanted to kind of mess with the fans because you got to remember it was pre-internet. So no one really knew what we looked like.
Right.
So I would get on stage one day as a construction worker. The next day I'd be a baseball player. Next day I'd be a janitor. Next day I would look like I was straight out of Warrant or Poison, like full glam. I mean, and dressing like CC DeVille in 1995 was not cool.
No, I know. Yeah, that's crazy. That's pretty ballsy. It's like so goes against the grain because that stuff was so 5 years ago.
Oh, I would dress like a gym teacher. When I say dress, it wasn't just like, okay, ha ha ha, that guy's got a wig on in the corner. No. I would get like wigs. I would glue on the mustaches. Like it was like from a distance. And I would wear like a coach's, I'd have the whistle around me, and I would be doing calisthenics in the parking lot. So we'd be in Cleveland and we'd be playing a sold out show to 1,000 people. And I'd be out there doing sprints. And some would be like, these kids would be pouring in with their parents. They'd be looking and going, who the hell is that guy running in the parking lot? What? It's 40 degrees outside. And I'd be stretching, doing deep knee bends. And then of course the joke was on them 2 hours later when we'd hit the stage and be like, holy shit, that was the guy in the parking lot.
That was the lead singer. Yeah. That's pretty crazy.
So it was all in good fun and boredom.
Yeah. So let's talk about, so then, like you said, you're auditioning and that's when you started playing guitar. And then you said that like part of your success is just meeting the right people. So you just happened to run into your bass player, Roger Lima. Like that was happenstance that you guys both happened to be at the same college. You were both looking to form a band, or?
Kind of. So that was an interesting story. So, Vinny and I moved to Gainesville, and about 10 months later, I had convinced him to move up from the town that we were living in. I said, we need to start a band here. The scene was just exploding. There was 2 or 3 punk venues in town, legitimate venues, plus 2 or 3 house shows that would held shows almost every night in like the student ghetto, we used to call it, where all the students lived. And so the scene was just, and every band came through. I saw everybody before they were somebody. I saw Green Day, Jawbox, Helmet, Mighty Mighty Boss Tones, Fishbone, No Effects. Everybody rolled through.
Wow.
And this was to sometimes 50, 60, 100 people. I would see these bands that went on to become superstars. The scene was just budding. So Vinny and I, we got I had met a guy at a show, and turned out he was a bass player. And I might have had a shirt on he liked. He commented. We get to talking, and anyways, this guy's name was Chris, and Chris was the first bass player in Less Than Jake. We never recorded anything with him. He was just with us for the first probably dozen or so shows. And this was in 1992 that we had played with Chris, and things just weren't working out. Vinny and I just didn't have that missing piece of the puzzle. Chris didn't sing. We were hearing harmonies and hearing different things.
Didn't you say that you felt like he kind of didn't have the drive that you guys had?
Yeah, well, he had a drive for other things. He was in he was in probably 3 or 4 other bands, as were a lot of people. And it was a big thing in Gainesville then. And just personally speaking, I hated it. It's like pick one. Okay. I was never a jack of all trades, so to speak. Like I wanted to hone in and master one, but I was in the minority there. Most people were playing in 2 or 3 or 4 different bands. That was just what you did back in Gainesville back then. And I was staunchly against it, and so was Vinny. But I had lived in an apartment off campus with two women that I had went to high school with. I had known forever. I grew up with. And I came home one night from school or from work or something, and one of my roommates had said, "Hey, I met this guy over at the dorms. You got to meet this guy. He's amazing." And I was like, "Yeah, okay, whatever." She's like, "Yeah, he's a guitar player. He's awesome. I think he should be in your band." And I don't know, maybe it was like a week or 2 later, same thing. I come home one night from work, and all of a sudden there's this dude in my living room with my roommate. And she's like, "Hey, this is Roger." I was like, "Oh, what's up?" And I said, "I heard you play." He said, "Yeah, I play." I said, "Come over to my room." I had my amp, my guitar in there, and he picked up my guitar and he started playing, and it was just like I had that aha moment. I'm like, that's my dude. I just knew immediately, like goosebumps on my arms and the hairs in the back of my neck standing up. I said, this is it.
So that's how it's just like a feeling. It wasn't like a calculated, thought out decision. It was like you just had the chemistry.
It was the chemistry. And then we started harmonizing together, and it was just from the get-go. I mean, we learned over the years to do it really well, and we've gotten a lot better, and with thousands and upon thousands of hours of practice. But initially on, it was, and we knew we were onto something. We would play. He had this loft in his dorm. We'd go over there, and he'd have 5, 6 people sitting around the loft, 7 people, guys and girls drinking beers. And we get out the acoustics, and we probably had a repertoire of like 100 songs at that point. Just, we just would go back and forth, and we were harmonizing and singing. And it was early on, maybe a month or 2 into knowing him, that there was some girl sitting there, and she looks at me one night, just very innocently and just very from the heart. She just says, "You guys are like professionals."
That's awesome.
And I knew what she meant by that.
Yeah.
And the light bulb went off again. And I said, "Yeah, we're getting good at this,
Yeah. So I know you hate this story. I know you're sick of telling this story, but explain the origin of the name of the band. And I know that it's a bulldog, but was there the story? I read that it was like a parrot. Did you guys just like fuck with people and tell them it was a parrot?
I got sick of telling the story. So
Okay.
I would say it's a parrot. Sorry. I would say it's a gerbil, and all kinds of shit. But Vinny's parents, this goes back to living in Port Charlotte. So we used to practice in a back spare bedroom that he had his drums and amps. We had my amp set up back there. And Jake was the English bulldog.
Okay.
And he would start howling after a while. We'd be back there, and inevitably the knock would come on the door from Vinny's mom. Guys, you got to stop, because Jake didn't like the bass and the noise. So we'd get about 15, 20 minutes in of practice. We'd go like hell. I think that's why all our early stuff was so fast. It was like, play fast so we can get through a couple songs.
Oh.
And,
okay.
So we were less than the dog.
Right. Yeah. Sorry. I know you get sick of telling that story, but it was funny because even my girlfriend last night, she's a fan of yours. And, she's not always a fan of all the bands I interview, but she's like, oh, I love, I'd play some of your music. She goes, and she starts singing along. I was like, oh, you know this band? She's like, oh, yeah, yeah. And then I was telling her, I was like, yeah, I don't think he likes this, telling the story of the name. She goes, yeah, what is the story with the name? I was like, well, you better listen tomorrow then. So it's kind of cool.
No, I mean, it's, excuse me, it's to the point now where I don't get asked the story of the name too often anymore. Either people don't care, we've been around for too long, or
they can look it up on Wikipedia. So
yeah, but I don't mind answering. It's kind of refreshing now because honestly,
okay, good.
Many years where people didn't ask anymore.
Yeah, I never knew until I looked it up or whatever, but it is interesting. So anyways, getting back to your story here. So you guys started out playing just bars on the weekends. But this is cool. I love hearing these kind of stories because you start out, I mean, you're basically nothing, right? I mean, you probably had a few fans or whatever, but you built it up in a big following in 3 years, but you went from, even in 6 to 8 months, you went from 100-seat places to 500-seat places, right?
It wasn't maybe quite that quick, but what we did was we micromanaged it from a sense of, okay, we don't want to be in other bands. We want to be in this band. And we want to conquer one thing at a time. So we're going to conquer the one place in town called the Hardback Cafe that was the place to play for punk bands. Held about 200 people, and that was crammed in like sardines. And this is a venue that, like I said, I saw all those bands, those Nashville bands that became superstars at this venue. And I saw everybody there. And we just wanted to play the Hardback. So we would, take their Tuesday night gig, a local night, and we started playing. And our motto from the very beginning was, and it didn't matter where we played, it was, if they don't like us, they're going to remember us. So whether they want to or not. And we were a spectacle from day one. You got to remember, we were playing in North Florida. So besides the punk club, we were taking gigs anywhere we could. So like, it'd be like, hey, this bar in Jacksonville has a gig this night. You'd get there. It'd be like 2 toothless rednecks and the bartender. And then like a couple punks would show up. And, it was a very volatile scene. We got lumped into the Southern ska California thing. We weren't part of that at all. We were like one of 3 punk ska bands in Florida in the early 90s.
So how do you get those gigs? What do you mean? Like there's a gig in this bar? Like you call around and they say there's a spot, or like, how do you find those gigs? Is it just knocking on doors and calling places?
A combination of all the above. A lot of it was these bars would be like, okay, I'm here on a Tuesday night. So if I charge $5 and 100 punks show up to my bar, that's $500. I'll give the band $100. So I'm going to make $400. I'll let them do their thing for 2 hours, and they might have to fight their way out of here with my locals, but that's not my problem.
Right.
So it was weird.
Did you get weird. Like, I'm thinking, I'm picturing the Blues Brothers where they walk in and it's like, we play 2 kinds of music here, country and Western. Was it kind of that kind of thing, or?
Yeah, there was plays. I mean, we tried to stick within our scene, but it was very, it was very interesting. The bands like ours out in California, it would be like 3, 4, 5, 6 ska punk bands, and it'd be great. But we would go out and play, and it'd be like we'd be sandwiched between a thrash band and a band that like wanted to be Pearl Jam or Nirvana. There was the identity was really weird in the early 90s. We came out of the 80s glam scene. People were trying to disavow that. And what was punk? And was Nirvana punk? Well, they were grunge, and there was all this weird stuff. And we just wanted to be this crazy, punk band with horns and just have a, high energy music, have a good time. And we stuck out like a sore thumb. And in retrospect, it was probably the best place we could have cut our teeth was in Florida, because it was challenging. And again, if the people didn't like our music, they were going to remember who we were. And we made a lot of fans like that. In the early days, it was people that, I didn't like your music at first, but you guys, when you threw out, we would go to thrift stores, for instance, and I'd go in and make some story about, hi, I'm from Habitat for whatever humanity. I'm here. I got $20. Could I take all your teddy bears here and pass them out around town? Oh, sure. Go, kid, whatever, So we'd go in and we would load up our truck with stuffed animals, bean bags, just stuff. The venues would be 3 feet deep in cotton and beanbag and stuff. We just would destroy places, go in and just make a mess, and people remembered that.
Where did you get that idea from? Like, is that inspired by other punk bands, or you like were you more inspired by the 80s like Kiss and that kind of stuff, like the theatrics?
It was mostly wanting to create a show on a budget. I wouldn't even call it shoestring, on no budget. I mean, we didn't have any money. We were young, but we wanted to set ourselves apart. We wanted to put on a show. It wasn't just about the music, because the music wasn't that great at that point. We knew we were writing pretty decent songs and there was something there, but we all had ears. We hadn't honed our sound yet. We hadn't put in those man hours, those hours that you need to become a great band. We hadn't put those in yet. So if while we were working on that, we were just creating this insane stage show that just turned into having characters on stage, me dressed up, our roadies would dress up, we'd be breathing fire. It was just this whole thing.
Yeah. And then tell me about this, like how you marketed yourself. Cause I know in the 80s on the Sunset Strip, there was a big thing of flyering where they would post flyers on different, they'd go out and post all their flyers. And you did that. You kind of like you found a way to like cheat on the copies with the copy machine or something. I heard you talking about this, where you ran off like 2,000 copies and you'd go to the clerk at the copy shop and tell them that you only ran out 2 or something and give them a quarter.
Oh, yeah. The Target copy on University Avenue there. Actually, I was on 13th Street in Gainesville. It was the local University of Florida place. It was where all those professors got everything. There was all students working there, and they're working for $5 an hour, whatever. They didn't give a damn. So you just walk in and, at first it was all legit, but again, we were broke. I'd say it was legit. You'd run off 200 flyers and you'd pay 5 cents a piece for them. So it'd be whatever, $10. But it got to the point where we were just a marketing machine. It was analog before digital, before social media. So yeah, we were out hitting the dorms, hitting the every telephone pole in town. And it was just a less than Jake media blitzkrieg. We were good at it.
That's super cool. And then, so did you guys like split it up with every person in the band plastering flyers in different places and stuff? Like you all pitched in?
Everybody kind of had their place, someone would do campus, someone would do downtown, someone would do midtown, and we would just go around and, I remember riding my bike and walking for hours. I mean, it would just be like, leave at 3 PM and come home at 9 PM, just flyer. And then of course you go back the next day and a lot of your flyers would either be taken down or covered over by the next band's flyers, and you'd rip theirs down and put yours back up and get 6 hours of visibility till the next band came along and yanked your shit down.
So funny. So eventually your hard work pays off. You guys get the Skankin Pickle concert tour in 1995, right? So it's funny because I remember this band because their logo wasn't it like a pickle with a crown on the top, right? Wasn't that them?
Yeah.
It was a very distinct. I don't know if I ever listened to their music, but I definitely remember people having that sticker or the shirt or whatever. So tell me about that tour. Was it profitable, or did you guys just break even, or did you lose money on it? Because
we didn't. We had toured with Pickle, but that wasn't like a breakout like thing for us touring with them specifically. So we had waited to go on the road. We had we honed our craft pretty well in Florida. We were playing to 400 or 500 kids in Gainesville, and now we were going up the road to Daytona, Orlando, Jacksonville, and there was 200, 300, 400 kids showing up there. And we did this for about a year and a half, and it was we were playing out 3, 4, 5 nights a week around Florida, just constantly hitting places, constantly putting out new merch, new 7-inches, just keeping the fans engaged. People were now writing us. We were writing every fan back.
Yeah, tell me about that, because you got like 400 to 500 letters a week. Then this was before you were signed to a major label, and you would like autograph them, and then you would send the stuff back like on your dime because they wouldn't send you a stamp, right?
Some people would, but I'm probably one out of every 50 letters would send a stamp. So we were funding this ourselves. Every bit of money that we were making was going back into the band. So, if we get paid $200 for a show, none of us were taking money from it. We were all still working. I was delivering pizzas. Roger was working at a tobacco shop, and we were all working jobs to support rent and whatever things we had. And we all had very low overhead. We were all living in the same apartment, me, Vinny, and Roger at that point. But yeah, we just sunk everything, back into the band. So once we realized, okay, there's no reason why we can't take what we're doing outside of Florida and go out elsewhere. That's when we started booking, a tour outside of the United States.
Yeah, but so tell me,
outside of Florida.
Yeah, so explain to the I'm just curious about this with the 400 to 500 letters and all the stuff that you're getting. And like you're spending the money to send stuff, but you're spending a lot of time with the fan engagement. Like, I mean, obviously it worked, but I'm just curious, like, was that like a specific strategy? You're thinking, okay, we need to make the fans that we have really happy rather than spending that time trying to get new fans. Cause aren't those people kind of already fans if they're sending you stuff, fan letters and such, or?
Yeah, well, we knew early on that it was a business. And it was no different than, you run a jacket company and you write the company and the company sends you back 2 coupons for 10% off the next jacket. You're like, and to your point, it'd be like, well, you already got that customer. You don't need to do that. He likes your product. Yeah. But he's going to give one of those 10% to somebody else. And he's going to tell 10 other people about the company because we've been cool to him.
Yeah.
So in the back of our mind, it was always about that. We knew we were running a business. As uncool as that sounds for a punk rock band.
Yeah.
We saw the benefit of making each person feel special, and it worked.
Yeah, no, it definitely works. So you, like you said, you were delivering pizzas. I think it was Gumby's, right? Gumby's Pizza. You get a call. What's that?
It was.
Yeah, Gumby's. And you come home and there's a message on your answering machine. This must have been back in the answering machine days. There's a message from an AR guy at Capitol Records that had heard one of your cassettes. And you thought it was a joke at first. You're like, all right, who's the asshole that played this joke and is pretending to be, but it was real, right?
Yeah, it was. He was a... So there was a, what's the word? It was a scout, they called him, a scout named Lauren Israel. Lauren had found our cassette, or had heard a song from somebody on a cassette. Because you remember these A&R guys, they were passing cassettes, and finally he tracked it down to who the band was, and he called record stores all over, found a record store in Atlanta, Georgia, and said he was cold calling people. Record stores across the US, and he was doing it in Florida and the South. I said, I'm looking for this band Less Than. He goes, yeah, I got a Less Than Jake cassette here. It was a demo called Better Class of Losers. And remember, we were making these cassettes up, dubbing them in our apartment, and we were sending them to record stores, and not even looking for money, just go, here, sell these. Sell them for $3 a piece. You can keep the money, just put them in your store. We weren't even trying to collect money back from him. We didn't care. It was just get the name out. So he found this cassette, and he then made a comp cassette mixtape for the A&R guy who had called in question. His name was Craig Aronson, and Craig not only signed us to Capitol. We left Capitol, went independent for a record, and then Craig signed us to Warner Brothers Records. He got a job there. So we had a long, long career with Craig. And, but anyways, Craig was, the story goes, he was driving up the 5 in California or something. All of a sudden this song comes on. He's like, what? And I can't remember if he had a car phone, they called him at that time, or if he got back to the office, but he called Lauren. He's like, Lauren, like that song, Sound Check. The third song on the tape, who the hell is that? He's like, Craig, that's that band I was telling you about, Less Than Jake. He's like, I kept telling you about him. You didn't want to listen. He's like, dude, I love these guys. And so he called us, and it was the day before we were going to leave on our US tour. We played a show in Gainesville, Florida at the Hardback, and Craig flew down for that show and saw us play for the first time.
and obviously loved it, signed you guys, and then you recorded the first album, Losing Streak. And you said that was like, you're kind of surprised that that a major label would put that out because it was a very like punk sounding album, right?
Well, I wasn't so much surprised that they put it out. I mean, looking back, it's funny, you know, there was all these cries of a sellout if you're on a major label, and people had a hard time saying that to us, because if you listen to that record, it didn't sound much different than the album before it. It was just a little more cohesive, you know. But the sounds and everything, it's a pretty raw record.
Rough sounding. You said, yeah,
for a
and
major
then
label.
yeah, and then the Hello Rock View. You got to work with a producer. What? Now I forget who produced. Howard Benson didn't produce Losing Streak, did he?
No, a guy named Michael Rosen produced Losing Streak, and then Howard came in for Hello Rock.
Yeah, because I mean Howard Benson, that was getting a pretty big name, right? I mean that guy worked with My Chemical Romance, Daughtry. He won a Grammy with Kelly Clarkson. So
yeah, but this was prior to all that.
Right. So that's what I was going to ask you, because I think he'd mostly done metal stuff and he worked with Motorhead. So like, what made you choose him as a producer?
Well, you know, we didn't really, there was no reason besides the fact that I knew that he worked with a lot of B-level bands. So this is where our heads were at back then. We had our songs and we had our fan base, and I don't want to say we didn't care about success. We certainly wanted our band to be listened to by as many people, but we just wanted to have fun. And having fun to me was, holy shit, this guy produced Bang Tango and Tough.
Yes, I was embarrassed to mention those names, but I saw that on the list and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. But I was like, nah, he won't care about it.
And Less Than Jake took Bang Tango out on tour in 2003. That's a whole
other. They did? What?
That's a whole other episode.
Oh, we'll have to talk about that off air or something, because these people we'll lose half the fans listening right now if we talk about that, but that's awesome.
So for Howard, it was just kind of like, he worked with Pretty Boy Floyd. He worked with these 80s glam bands that I loved. And I was like, I want to work with that guy. And
I love it. Yeah.
So yeah, and Howard didn't have a pot to piss in at this point. He had kind of, you know, this isn't me saying this, is Howard is straight up about this. He kind of had lost everything, in terms of, not lost everything, but his career, you know, his phone was ringing off the hook, and then the glam thing died. That's where he came from. So the record that he did right before us was Sepultura, Against. It was their first record with Derek Green, and he did the Sepultura record, and then he got the job for Hello Rockview. And actually, we had worked with him once prior. We did a song for the Scream 2 soundtrack called I Think I Love You. It was a cover of a Partridge Family, David Cassidy track. Mm-hmm. And Howard came to Gainesville. This was between Losing Streak and Rockview. He came to Gainesville and we hit it off. We thought he was great. We're like, yeah, we'll let him have a shot at our next record. And I was 22, 23 at that point. So, you know, it was more about, this guy worked with some of my 80s heroes.
That's so awesome. I love that. So yeah. And I love the title of the song, All My Best Friends Are Metalheads. So I think you'll like this route of the questioning, because I know you don't like the origin name, but you like the songwriting stuff. So let's talk about this song, because I think on the surface, the song might just seem kind of like a tongue-in-cheek song about metalheads being outcast, but I feel like there's like a deeper meaning. Like the intro of the song, obviously, it seems like very timely in the world right now, like being able to get along with people who are different than you. Like, do you agree with that? Or, I mean, tell me what the song's about since you wrote it.
It was very tongue-in-cheek, and it was not cool to admit you liked metal in 1990.
Oh, I know. I used to wear Motley Crue t-shirts at college, and people were like, why are you wearing that band? That's old. This was like, 96.
And so basically, we it was just a title of All My Best Friends Are Metalheads, meaning like we're all inclusive. All our best friends are metalheads. All our best friends are emo kids. All our best friends are punks. All our best friends are rappers. You know, it could have been any of those titles. It just happened to be metalheads.
But do you think, was that the song was about, like trying to get along with people who are maybe not cool or outcasts or different, or like?
I mean, I think a lot of our early stuff was like that, because we felt that way. We were suburban kids that, we just felt like we were trying to find our place in the world and trying to find our voice. And just, we were we were all inclusive, and that's what punk rock was about then. It was about, welcoming everybody, and that's where all the freaks gathered, and we were freaks. We like to be, the stranger, the weirder, the better. Like I remember pulling up to places like, and you'd hear from people, the promoter in the previous city, be like, "Where are you going tomorrow night?" Like, "Oh, we're going up to the Canal Club up in Virginia or Richmond." "Oh, dude, that area's sketchy." And I'd be like, "Fuck yeah, let's do it."
Wow. Okay. I like it. So yeah, I heard you talking on your podcast to Mark from Blink-182 and about that song, "What's My Age Again," and how like it was originally, he wanted to call it Peter Pan Complex, but the label was like, no, you got to have like the chorus and the title. So to explain to me that theory of like, that's like a punk thing where you name the song something that has nothing to do, like the song title is not in the lyrics at all, right?
Well, I don't know if it's a punk thing. I mean, you can go back to Bohemian Rhapsody. What the fuck does that mean?
Oh, that's true. Yeah. Good point.
So there's a lot, for us, it was kind of, the song title, it made you think. It's like, whoa, and in retrospect, the label a lot of times would have a problem with like, well, why is this song not called, this? Why is it called, this weird title that you never even say the title in it? And that was part of the art. That was part of the poetry. And that was part of the vision of the band. It wasn't, we didn't want to conform and be like, this song is called, what the chorus says over and over again. And, I don't know if we could go back in time, I'd probably meet the label halfway, maybe. I think some of the stuff was really out there, but hey.
So did you have a lot of freedom at Capitol then? I mean, it seems like they let you kind of have free reign, right? Or
yeah, I mean, we wrote the songs, we did what we were gonna do. Really, the only person was the A&R person, Craig. He was the only one that ever stopped by the studio or interjected his thoughts, and that was his job. He was our conduit to the label, so he would show up and give his opinion, but he'd only be there for an hour or two, and then it would be us left to our devices and doing whatever. So it was a band effort. It was never really a label thing at that time. And again, looking back, we were young. We thought we knew everything. We didn't. Mm-hmm. I certainly, personally speaking, I wouldn't change anything. I think that history is how it is, and I think that we've had a great career. But if I were to go back, I'd definitely probably be a little more open to things.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know now that I didn't know everything.
Yeah. So speaking of open to things, I'm sure you're probably sick of telling this story too. But you guys had the same agent as Bon Jovi, and they were getting ready to do a tour, and they offered Sugar Ray, Smash Mouth, Eve 6, all these like really popular 90s bands. They all turned it down an opening spot on their tour. And so then they offered you, and you were like 80s metal fans. So you're like, fuck yeah. Right. Like you ended up opening for Bon Jovi.
So, yeah, they were with CAA, but they were with a different division, but that's a booking agency, creative artists. And, Bon Jovi had not yet hit with their comeback album Crush. VH1 hadn't picked up It's My Life yet. And they put their feelers out, and bands just didn't want to be associated with it. The bands in the 90s. They were trying to carve out this career, and like, no, I don't want to be associated with the 80s thing. Mm-hmm. And Bon Jovi completely reinvented themselves with that record.
Yeah,
all
definitely.
Those fans in the 80s that loved them still loved them, and they made a whole cachet of new fans. And so we jumped on the tour. For us, it was a story. It was literally just another form of print promotion to get our name into a different audience, a different, because we, by that point, that was in 2000, we were not about diminishing returns. It's like, yeah, we can go on the next ska tour, but we know what we're preaching to the choir. We know what that's going to do for us. Those people love us already, and we're grateful for it, and we're thankful for that. But we want to play to new people, and we want to have a story. And man, that perked up a lot of ears. You're touring with Bon Jovi. What are you doing? So, yeah.
But isn't that kind of punk rock too? Because you're doing the opposite of what people want you to do and what they expect. And
well, that's exactly what it is, and yeah.
That's so awesome. So yeah, tell me some stories about this tour. Cause, you said there was, I gotta clarify this. You said there was people reading the Wall Street Journal in the front row, like literally just with their newspaper in the front row.
Yeah, it'd be like a dude with his tie hat off. He just got off work, and we'd be out there, and we were the wrong band to do that to.
Right. Yeah.
because I was coming out in like assless spandex. Like I was looking like I was straight out of the 80s. We were giving people a show.
Right.
And, you know, there was one woman there one night in the front row and she had bleach blonde hair. And I'm like, ladies and gentlemen, can we get a light over here? And I said, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to give a big welcome to Lita Ford, you know, and like the 18 people that got it, they laughed their asses off, you know, and it was just shit like that every night. You know, we were just, we were taking the living piss out of the whole situation. But Bon Jovi, they liked it because they knew we weren't making fun of them. They knew we were making fun at the absurdity of the whole scene that we loved. You know?
Yeah. So didn't you walk by Richie Sambora wearing the assless chaps one time, like and he was like with his friends and family?
He was with his family, yeah. and my manager came to the dressing room. He goes, guys, we're on in 5. And so that I got up and you know, was finishing my whatever it was on the drink on the way to the stage, and we're walking past his dressing room and yeah, he got to see my cottage cheese pimply ass.
So wait, explain to me this too. You said that Heather Locklear, she came on tour and she got her own dressing room, but you guys were, I don't know if you were joking, like, are you literally in the broom closet or you had a smaller dressing room?
So like, you know, the backstage of an arena, there's multiple rooms. Okay.
Sure.
So there would be like, you know, all the band dressing rooms. There'd be a tuning room for the band where they had like amps and drums set up where they could jam. Each band member had their own dressing room. And these were basketball and hockey arenas. So these were like, you know, different locker rooms and stuff. And then they had a room for Bon Jovi's guests and for their wives and stuff to hang out in. And they have nice couches in there and deli trays and drinks and shit. And this would be like a proper room. And then like, we would be like in like a utility closet. Like, I'm not even kidding. It would be like it was like a prison cell, you know, and they'd like,
wow.
Sometimes not even throw a couch in there because they didn't have one. It would be like some folding chairs. And then we got a case of water, 2 bottles of wine and towels. That was our deal. That and $5,000 a night.
That's not bad. And you got a merch kiosk around the 3rd floor or something. You said like, yeah.
Yeah. We didn't make any merch because we were hidden. It was designed. They didn't want us to sell any merch. They wanted to sell the merch.
That sucks. So then you get signed to Warner, like you said, and then you had a couple albums there. So let's talk about, I know we don't have an hour to break down the songs like you do on your podcast, but I do want to break down the song, Look What Happened. Because I think that song is so catchy. It's like happy. It's like a peppy sing-along song. So tell me about that. Like, I feel like if you stripped it down and slowed it down.
It should have been called I Swear It's the Last Time, by the way. I did fight for that one.
Yes.
I did fight for that one. I hate the title.
You hate the title?
Yeah, it's awful. Look what happened.
Yeah.
It's fucking terrible.
No, because I had to put that in parentheses for myself because I was like, which one is that again? And I was like, oh, and I Swear It's the Last Time. Yeah. So, because that song is just, it makes you sing along. It almost sounds like it could be like it's funny you said at the beginning that you are into the 50s, like kind of like that oldies. It sounds like if you stripped it down, it could almost be a 50s song.
Yeah, I never really thought about it like that. But yeah, that tune was written for Borders and Boundaries. Our bassist Roger came in with the initial idea of that song, and we recorded it for that record. And then Rob Cavallo, who produced Anthem, our first record for Warner Brothers, he wanted to recut the track. He had heard it and he thought it was a hit, and he wanted to us to re-record it. So we did.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I love it. Is that one? That's got to be one of your most popular songs.
Yeah, I would say so. It's up there. You know, it's one we play live pretty much every show.
Awesome. And then in 2006, you had In With the Out Crowd. That's interesting to me about I don't know if this is accurate, but it seemed like the album had some big hits. Overrated, Everything Is, The Rest of My Life. Are these #1 hits in the UK? Is that accurate? And if so, why was it more popular there than here?
No. So per capita, we're probably bigger in the UK than ever. Our height in the UK, we were doing 3 nights at the London Astoria, which is defunct now. It's a train station. It no longer exists. But it was 2,500 people a night. So that was 7,500 people, 7,500 tickets we used to do there. But no, we hit before then. We hit on our Borders and Boundaries album with Gainesville Rock City. That was our first hit in England. And then people picked up on Hello Rockview, and then of course Metalheads. To this day, if you're at a punk or ska venue, they'll have these. Basically, they're like dance clubs we have here in the States, but here they'd be like playing booty music. Over there, they'll play punk and ska, and kids are just dancing to it. And you'll hear to this day, all my best friends are Metalheads in Gainesville, Rock City, in those clubs. It's pretty cool.
That's awesome. So, and then let's talk about some of the other tours you did. You've done more Warped tours than any other band, right?
Yeah. We played more Warped tours. There's not a band probably in 100 shows that could catch us. I think last show we did was our 441st Warped Tour show.
That's impressive.
So, considering there's 365 days in a year, we're
yeah,
spent way more than half my life, or way more than a year of my life on the Warped Tour.
That's crazy. And the first one you did was with Bad Religion and Suicidal Tendencies. Did you get to know Bad Religion? See, I was never really into that punk thing, but I remember one time my girlfriend at the time, she goes, "Yeah, my friend wants to go to a Bad Religion concert," and I was like, "All right." And I went, and they put on such a good show. They made me a fan. I thought they were so great. Did you have the same experience seeing them, or were you fans before?
Yeah, so I saw Bad Religion probably in 91.
Oh, wow.
91.
Okay.
Yeah. So I saw them way earlier than I was even in the band. So I was a fan since the 80s of Bad Religion. Heard them in high school. So by the time I got to play with them, first time I got to play with them was in 96. They toured through Florida with Goldfinger. We got on the bill in Jacksonville. Didn't meet them that night, but did end up meeting them in 97 on that tour. And we were good friends to this day.
Oh, okay. That's very cool. Yeah. I want to get the singer I feel like he'd be a good guest. Isn't he a professor? I don't think people know that he's a college professor.
Yeah. He's a
smart guy.
Professor at Cornell Cornell. I can't remember.
Yeah, I think that sounds about right. And then 2003, you guys did a tour with Good Charlotte and Newfound Glory. Was that kind of the peak of that kind of that pop punk? You guys really weren't pop punk. You were more like ska-punk, but they were kind of the pop punk. That was kind of would you say that was like around the peak of that kind of music? 2003-ish?
Yeah, that was, definitely, this was post Blink.
Right.
And it was still, Sum 41, Newfound Glory, Good Charlotte. It was all over the radio, and it was living its moment then. We had already been a band for 11 years when we took that tour. So,
dang, that's weird to think about.
Newfound Glory was about 23 years old then. I was 29, and that's a big difference. But we had 11 years of experience as a band, and whereas those bands couldn't go out and meet the fans because their faces were plastered on MTV, we would tell the crowd, "Hey, when we get off stage, come meet us at our merchandise booth." And it was mayhem because these mostly young girls, they wanted to meet anybody that had to do with the tour. Ultimately, they wanted to meet the Good Charlotte twins.
But
the Good Charlotte twins were too big of stars at that point to come commingle. So we would go out, and it was mayhem. We were selling tons of merchandise. There was some nights that we'd have to be yanked over the merch booth and taken out of exit doors because the fire people would come in and be like, it was a fire hazard. The tunnels were getting too packed with people. These were 15, 20,000 seat arenas we were playing. And we'd come up and say, we're going to be at this kiosk. And it was mayhem. So we took full advantage of that tour to promote ourselves. It was another promotional tool. And that bought us some more years in the business. To this day, we have people coming up and saying that's the first time that they ever saw the band.
That's really cool. Yeah. And it's funny because I know I saw that tour, but I was in Seattle. I think you guys only did half of the shows, right? I don't think we did the East Coast and Midwest. And NXPX was on the run you saw. But, there was detractors and people, I can't believe you're touring with Good Charlotte. It's sell out mall punk. And it's like, we didn't give a shit. We've been a band for 11 years. It's like, I just wanted to play in front of new people. And it was the right call. And, is that even still a thing? Because I remember that was big when I was in high school. I was a metalhead, but like I had a friend he was really into Bad Religion, No Effect, like all the punk bands. And he told me, he's like, once a band goes on MTV, they sold out. I'm done with it. I think he didn't like Bad Religion because I think they had made like one music video or something. Like, is that even a thing still? You think?
Time period was, I never bought into it. You know,
I didn't either. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't care. And it was laughable to me. I used to tell people like, so you're pissed that a band is on MTV, but you're not pissed that Michael Jordan just got $10 million to dribble a fucking basketball.
Right. Exactly.
Go away. Get away from me. I'd say shit like that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't even deal with, mind you, Michael Jordan deserved $10 million. He was a badass.
Yeah, he was good.
Okay?
For sure.
And so did the band on MTV.
Yeah.
They deserve whatever they deserve because they worked their ass off to get there too. So
I think it's only a sell if you change your style to try to be more popular. Wouldn't you agree with that? I mean, just because you are signed to a major label or on MTV, if you're still doing the same thing and being true to yourselves.
I guess so. But like for me, it's like if someone would have came along and said, listen to this song and we want it to have a country western tinge with violins to it.
Mm-hmm.
I'd go, well, that's weird. It doesn't sound like Less Than Jake, but let me try to sing it. And if I sang it and it came from the heart, I'd put Less Than Jake. Now that's just me. That's not speaking for my band. They're staunchly against that argument, but I've always maintained that if I sing it and I believe in it and I can sell it, meaning I can sell it with conviction, then I'll put my name on it all day long. I've always maintained that. You know, I'm a band. One song or two songs can sometimes change the course of your career. You never know the power of one song, and to be open-minded about it is to me, I've always chosen that over being closed-minded or what are people going to think? I don't give a shit.
That's awesome. So like, speaking of that, do you have trolls and stuff, or did you back in the day, or do you have trolls now? Where I think I saw like a comment that someone had said on your Instagram and you like chimed back in and made fun of them back or something. Do you do that a lot, or how do you deal with trolls? You just block them or ignore them?
You know, our fans now are 28 to 45 years old. Okay. 28's the low end, 30 to 45. That's our fan base now. So most 30 to 45-year-olds aren't trolling.
Are you sure about that? Have you been on Facebook? Like,
I mean,
there's people in their 50s that are trolling.
Sure. But I'm saying for the most part, you know, if we were a way younger band, our fan base was 18 to 25, it would certainly be route with a little bit more of that. But for the most part, no. I mean, and if anybody does, probably the comment you saw, I just mostly joke back. It's never mean-spirited because everybody has their opinion, and most of the time, if they're there commenting on a negative opinion, as soon as they hit send on the button, they're getting in their car and putting in Less Than Jake and listening to it. So I know the reality of that, and I don't really let it bother me.
I always it's kind of funny though when you guys respond though, because I feel like maybe sometimes people also don't think that you're actually going to respond. Yeah,
well, again, this is no different than us writing fans back in the 90s like this. Now we write them like this.
Yeah, that's true.
We're still keeping in touch with people and still engaging. That's the way we keep our band, you know, I hate using the word, I don't mean relevant, like we're superstars on TV, but we stay relevant in the now with people.
Yeah. So, I mean, back in the 90s and early 2000s or whatever, like your band was pretty crazy, out of control and stuff. And there's a lot of partying going on. Do you have to slow down now as you get older? Like, because I feel like it goes one way or the other. With a lot of people I talk to, musicians, like they either are like pretty much totally cutting out booze and alcohol, or they have at least slowed down. But like, I just interviewed the guy from Skid Row, and he's like, "Yeah, we do shots before we go on stage." I was like, "You guys are still doing shots?" Like, it's just like crazy to me. But I think am I right that you don't drink anymore?
Well, I mean, no, but you have to know what your limits are. So you have to know what you can do. Never once did my band ever get on stage and not be able to perform because of our substance or alcohol consumption. So, you know, the band always came first. And again, I found the right group of people. So bands that choose to do that to themselves and they can't handle it, then don't do it. You know, if you can't I've always said, if you can't handle your alcohol, your drug intake, don't do it. Simple.
Okay. Good.
Never
good
ever
advice.
affected our band. We always took care of we knew that the most important part of the day was that time on stage. Whatever you do after that is your business.
Sure. Absolutely. So tell me about the new album, Silver Linings. It sounds, I listened to a couple songs. I mean, it sounds like Less Than Jake. There's nothing too crazy about it. It's a good album, right?
Say that again. You heard it?
Yeah, well, I heard. I think whatever the song is on Spotify. I think there's 1 or 2 songs that are out now, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, it fits in exactly with the rest of your catalog. I mean, listen to a lot of your music. I mean, it fits in with your catalog perfectly. But tell me, I mean, you tell me about it. I think the new single is called "Dear Me," right?
Yeah. I mean, I people that love Less Than Jake are gonna love it, and people that didn't like us before aren't gonna like it.
Right. Okay.
I say that with every record we've ever done. I mean,
Yeah.
we sound how we sound,
Yeah.
and people, the fans that love our band, the response so far has been awesome.
That's very cool. Yeah. And then I got a lot of questions about a solo record or I don't know, an acoustic record. Is that something that's happening, or people are asking me about that? When is your solo record coming out?
So yeah, I just released a book called Blast from the Past. You can go get pre-orders. Go to chrisdemakes.com. That's CHRISDEMAKES, abook.com, chrisdemakes.book.com. It'll redirect you to Smart Punk Records page. I have 2 solo songs that are accompanying the book, and the book is it's a picture book with stories from all my years in Less Than Jake. The book's called Blast from the Past. The single is called Blast from the Past. That's streaming now, and it's coming out on a 7-inch. And the flip side of that 7-inch is another song called All American Asshole. It's about one of my characters from back in the day.
Okay.
So I'm going to be recording more solo music next year. Every couple months, I'm going to do a couple more songs, and I'm going to release them to give the book another push. So the book's going to be about a year and a half long campaign. And then once all the songs on 7-inch are released, I'm going to compile them into a full-length record. So I'm working on my solo record slowly over the next year and a half.
Awesome. And then you have a podcast, Chris DeMakes a podcast. People suggest that you were actually going to go into radio if you didn't get into a band, right? And then people kept suggesting you should have a podcast, and you resisted it, and then you finally gave in.
Well, I did. My manager finally suggested, look, you should really do this. It'll be a good vehicle to talk about your other projects. And I based it around songwriting because I've been doing custom songs for about the last year for people. So I'll do a custom song for your jingle, for your business, for your anniversary, for your birthday, for your friend, whatever you want. I'll write you your own custom songs. So if you want to see my work, you can go to chrisdemakes.com. That'll redirect you to my YouTube page. I have all my stuff up there. I also do live one-on-one video consultations via Zoom. I'll collaborate with you on your song. I'll produce your song. I'll talk about the music business with you and do that. So I'm constantly just churning out different projects.
Yeah. And then do you also do speeches? You're doing speeches in high school to talk about music?
Yeah, I haven't gotten into that yet because, this year's been kind of all over the place. But
sure,
as soon as I can get back out into crowds, I'll be giving speeches at universities, high schools, colleges, music seminars, South by Southwest, things like that. I want to go and speak and tell my story. About 30 years in the business, I have a really cool story to tell and a lot of knowledge that I can help people. And I'm already thinking about the second book.
Wow.
What that's going to be about and how I'm going to go about that, which is going to be about the music industry and everything that I've learned. And feel like I have a lot of good knowledge for younger bands. But I'm always getting asked all the time, how do you do this or how do you make it? That's the big question.
Yeah. No, I think you answered that in this episode. I think people, if they listen, I mean, it's a good formula for success. Are you guys going to be touring at some point, you think, if things, do you have any shows scheduled or are you going to wait?
Nothing scheduled. We'll go tour when everybody is ready to be back and, comfortable in front of people,
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, hopefully that's sooner rather than later. Like I said, I don't think I've seen you guys because you didn't open so I'd love to see you live. Now I'm becoming more of a fan after listening to more of your music. It's good stuff.
Right on. Yeah, man.
Yeah.
So as soon as we can get back out there, we will.
Cool. All right. And then last thing, I always end with a charity. I know that, and that's kind of interesting because I was listening to your podcast and you do the same. Well, I end each episode with a different charity based on the guest, but you do like a charity per month. You do one charity a month, right?
Yeah. So I thought it would be best to concentrate on 12 charities a year, once a month. And I thought it would be cool to just hone in and do my best to, give back to charities that need help, especially this year, because it's been a tough year for charities. So this month, I'm sponsoring, it's called Gilda's Club of Middle Tennessee. You can find them on all the social media networks. And you can actually go to ChrisToMakesADifference.com. That'll link to their page.
Okay.
And so go to ChrisToMakesADifference.com. It'll link you there. And it's basically, they are a charity for cancer. And they'll help families in need. It goes to cancer research. It's a wonderful organization. October being Breast Cancer Awareness Month, it was a great month to do this. So if anybody listening could go to ChrisToMakesADifference.com and give $1, $2, $3, that'd be fantastic.
That's awesome. Great. Well, very cool. Anything else you want to promote, or any other future plans that you want to tell us about?
No, just if you can, check out the book at ChrisToMakesABook.com. There's all kinds of really cool merchandise. There's posters, there's a calendar, there's t-shirts, there's bookmarks. It's a lot of fun.
Oh yeah, that was a question I was going to ask you. What is I think some of the fans were asking that too. Like, what was your favorite merch item? Because I think I saw a box of cereal. Was that real? Like you guys had your own cereal?
Yeah. So we've done every merchandise item pretty much under the sun.
That was part of your strategy in, like, as a business, that you were going to try to do these like kind of unique and interesting merch items, right?
Yeah, I mean, if it kept it interesting for us, or it kept it interesting for the fans, that was the whole thought process behind it.
How do you get involved with that kind of stuff? Like, how do you just go to these companies and say, hey, can you make this? Or is there a specific guy that does all this stuff?
I mean, that and just finding the companies to do it. And then of course, over the years, we've made friends of people at those companies. And then our fans got older and started being part of companies that wanted us to, hey, I work for a hot sauce company. We want to make a Less Than Jake hot sauce. Hey, I work for a beer company. Now we got weed companies in California wanting to put our name on marijuana, which we've done. So
wow, that's funny. Very cool. All right, awesome. Well, thanks. I look forward to more, hopefully touring someday, seeing you guys live, and more new music.
Yeah, and the new Less Than Jake record, Silver Linings, is out December 11th. Check it out.
Okay.
If you love the band, you'll love it.
All right, thanks, Jake. Or called you Jake.
Can call me Jake.
Thanks,
no
Chris.
No problem, Jerry.
Yeah.
Good to see you, Jerry.
All right, thanks, Chris.
Take care, buddy. Bye-bye. Thank you.
What a fun guy to chat with. He even laughed off my stupid name gaffe at the end there. Made me laugh, so I thought, I'd leave that in there and not edit it out, because it's funny, and isn't that the point of all this? To have fun and make people laugh and entertain them, even if it's at my expense. I hope the episode itself was entertaining for all of you. I had a blast. Check out Chris on social media. He's got a lot of these old school pics that he was talking about, where he's wearing crazy costumes and such, that will also be in his book. And check out the new Less Than Jake stuff. It's really, if you just go into their Spotify and you listen to the old stuff and the new stuff, it's all great, and it blends together harmoniously. It's not like going from Appetite for Destruction to Chinese Democracy. And if you like this interview, check out some of the other ones I have: musicians, comedians, authors, all sorts of good stuff. And make sure to follow me on social media and subscribe to the podcast on YouTube or wherever you listen, so that way you never miss an episode. Thank you for listening, and remember to shoot for the moon.